Two people that shouldn't be fighting MMA beat each other up in a pretty unexhilarating feat of mediocrity over on the Bellator cage. But we also have a new interim, doesn't have the same ring to it, heavyweight kind of belt holder. UFC 180 is in the books, which means it's time for Verbal Tap, the show that proves fighting is way easier from outside the cage. I am your host, Kevin Phillips. With me, of course, Raf Esparza, the man that knows the guide to watching fights in a bar.
I do. I really try and help my friends whenever they're looking for it. And you know what, Kev? Sometimes, try as you might, even a guy as experienced as bar watching fights as I am, you run into Georgia Bulldogs fans when you're watching fights.
Sorry. I'm going to say sorry, and I think the state of Georgia owes you an apology.
They really do. And the thing is, it wasn't so much me. It was more so the lady, as she made eye contact with them doing all of their chants throughout the evening. Because, yes, they were clapping and applauding, even though they were destroying Auburn yesterday, which, great feat. But as they were stomping and cheering, they're boasting about what it's like to be a drunk Bulldog fan. So, yay.
Yeah. Thank God it wasn't a SATs test and it was just a football game. We also have the results of Over Under Kevin for UFC 180 coming up very shortly, but waiting silently on the line, Alex Perez. Alex, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. How's it going?
How was your fight watching experience?
With the exceptions of a kink or two, everything was pretty awesome.
A kink or two? Where were you supposed to watch the fights? Where did you end up watching the fights?
I was supposed to watch them at Buffalo Wild Wings. We show up. A buddy of mine invited us. Sounded real confident. Yeah, guys, we're going to watch them. Awesome. We get there. He's not there. We walk in. Oh, we're not even showing the fight. Oh, great. Thanks, Buffalo Wild Wings. So we scrambled for another place to find the fights, and we're able to get to Hooters. Hooters actually came through.
Doesn't always Hooters come through, though.
The old reliable.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you, pull the people aside at Buffalo Wild Wings and go, wait, you're not showing the fights? What do you do then? That's the whole point of Buffalo Wild Wings, is to show things that no one actually wants to be at home to watch.
Thank you. I have no idea. I don't know what they were thinking. But you know what? There was a few other we tried a few other pool halls and other places that usually have them, and to no luck.
I guess they just have no love for Mexico. That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
Message received. And you know what? For every one of those commercials where BYU has someone that can call the referee on the field to extend the game, this should be the other side of that. It's like a whole group of sports fans watching, all geared up, ready to watch the fights. Like, yeah, let's go for Doom, team for Doom. And they walk in and it's like, sorry, we have nothing but college games and an NBA. And it's like, oh, record scratches, and they leave. They should have to show that too. Guys, I did not see the fights. I was busy being a attentive boyfriend. Let's not get carried away. I was phoning in attentiveness. I was throwing a birthday party for the lady friend. I'm still hungover, but I'm trying my best. I did watch a little bit of Bellator. I watched Stephan Bonnar and Tito Ortiz comically work out their differences in the cage.
By comically, Kevin, what you may mean is, I think it is fairly certain to say that Stephan Bonnar has been hired in a community theater reproduction of Thriller because the amount of slow that he showed yesterday was impressive. And having said that as well, let's also give it up to the wonderful class act that is Tito Ortiz.
His promo videos leading up to the fight were pure art. It was like, you have lost it. Just please retire. Those fights, not worth talking about in any sort of awesome to watch sense, super boring. Talk to me about UFC 180 specifically.
I'm happy to walk you through it, Kevin. But before
start
we do,
up top.
I do have to pose the following question to you about Ortiz and Bonnar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if and I don't know that people are really thinking about it in this way, but what if Ortiz Bonner was Bellator's version of Bonner Griffin?
Well, then that explains why Bellator is not as famous as the UFC. Alex, what do you think? Does Tito Bonner have the same bite to it as Forrest Griffin and Bonner?
It's not even close. This is one of the Bellator fights I did want to catch, and it was just boring as hell, man. And even afterwards, Ortiz wants a rematch. Yeah, I mean, fuck, man, you guys are no Forrest Griffin. That's for sure.
If I would like to bring up one thing, it was this. It was that while our bar showed all of UFC in its entirety, I thought Bellator 131 was a pay-per-view that nobody was going to buy, so I didn't even bother thinking about it. I just go, no, I'm here for the UFC. It wasn't until the very end of the very short UFC 180 that they decided to even put on the Tito Ortiz and Stephan Bonner fight, because I think most people in the bar were just like, is there other stuff? Yeah, put on the Bellator, I guess. Okay. And it was a terrible fight. And yes, Tito Ortiz, like a 5-year-old, went around showing his middle finger and really, really being an asshole and taking that heel-esque persona. But if we can say one good thing about Bellator, it was that they gave a place for Joe Schilling, our friend, to get a destructive knockout. I would highly invite all of you guys to go check out the link. We'll put it on our website. But other than that, nah. But you know what, guys? Enough free publicity for Bellator 131. Let's actually talk about the fights that mattered. And there were some stakes on here because, Alex, you played in last week's version of Over Under. Kevin, I have to ask you right now, how do you feel? You made those predictions, and then you were watching the fights yesterday. Did that kind of alter the way you were watching the fights?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it made everything a lot more exciting, I'll say that for sure. But, if it was in any other instance, I would have actually been rooting for Mark Hunt. But because of the bet and because of what I thought, the styles were going to match up like, I was rooting for Fabricio Verdum the only way. And I feel like I was the only one in the bar because as soon as he got that win, I was the only one screaming out at the top of my lungs in that bar.
Well, because you're a fan of Crushing Dreams, apparently, because everybody was into that Cinderella story. And I got to tell you, I was also going for Verdum, but when that first knockdown happened and Mark Hunt showed everybody and reminded them what power he holds in his hands, I started screaming to the top of my lungs, Verdum, you have to find a way to get him down. Don't stand up with him anymore.
Same him. All I could yell was, stay down, Verdum, stay down.
It was terrifying. I haven't felt that much excitement for two fighters. And it's not to say that I was rooting for Verdum and I didn't like Mark Hunt. I think Mark Hunt's great. But it's just every time Mark Hunt whiffed and missed, I'm pretty sure he gave solar power to all of the windmills in all of Mexico.
I mean, it's one thing to stun your opponent, but to drop him with sheer power is ridiculous. Just literally, it pushed him to the ground with a punch. It's fucking bananas.
And even when they did get to the ground in that first round, and you saw Verdum close his guard, that still looked terrifying. Was that your thought when they got to the ground?
No, I was actually happy with it. I know Verdum's guard. I'm a big fan of it, so I wasn't too worried. That's where I thought it was going to end. I was like, it's any minute now it's going to end, especially when Mark started posturing up. I was like, I think it's coming. But I was very surprised when Mark Hunt, made it out of there alive.
I think it was interesting to me because it was close to the edge of the cage, which it has its pros and cons, obviously. But I thought it was kind of stunting for what he could do. Granted, It has proven a nice place for him, say against Fedor. But in this instance, I just thought if you had Mark Hunt raining down on any kind of ground and pound, even from the guard, that's a lot to take in, even if you're trying to control, which he was doing mostly wrist control and trying to control him a little bit there. But so we get to the second round, and Kev, this fight I want you to go see because it's super exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Was it close? I mean, you're about to get into the second round, but I'm just curious. As you leave the first round, what are your impressions?
as it left the first round, I still thought it was in anybody's hands. I was like, this could still go any way. Going into the second round is where I knew Mark Hunt was going to get tested. How it ended, though, I didn't see that coming. That's for sure. That's the least possible way anybody expected that to end.
Go for it. Hit me with this. Tell me how it ends.
Okay, Kev. Now,
spoiler alert. Go for it.
Let's set up the scene a little bit. So that first round, I think if you're scoring it and you're objective, I think you give it to Mark Hunt. He's pushing the action. I think those powerful knockdowns, just him, like, I don't even, like, he could have touched him with his pinky, and that's how much different power he had to knock him down. But when we get to the second round, go ahead, Alex.
Well, just to cut in on that first round too, Mark Hunt, I mean, he was showing some takedown defense, Fabricio tried, he threw a few takedowns at him, and Mark Hunt was not having it.
And I'll say this, Kev, to go off of what Alex is saying here, there was a lot of, like, ankle picks that Verdum was going for, and Mark Hunt just wasn't having it. So it was tense, because you're wondering in your brain, I don't know if you did this, Alex, but I put myself at this moment where I go, man, if I'm fucking Verdum, what the hell do I do in this situation?
Yeah, I didn't see much for him at all. I was like, oh, man, just pull guard, Verdum. Pull guard.
So we get to the second round. We know, as Alex mentions, it's going to be a test round for Mark Hunt, and it starts off just fine. But I'm going to go ahead and let Alex spoil how the fight ended for you, Kevin.
Oh, man. So second round, about minute and a half in, I believe. And out of nowhere, Verdum just throws a flying knee.
No way.
Back, catches Mark Hunt square in the head.
Oh!
Mark Hunt goes down. Verdum's all over him, raining on him. He hits maybe 15 or 20 unanswered blows to the head. And finally, the referee stops it. And, Hunt, I mean, he looked dazed. He wasn't completely out, but it was a good stop all in all.
Holy shit. A flying knee?
Yep. Right on the button, Kevin. Right on the chin.
God
you see
damn.
Mark Hunt's just, head like a Rock'em Sock'em robot just kind of go up for a second. But, he's not out. He's still so tough that he's still with it and trying to block it off.
Yeah, Mark's hard to knock out. Hunt is always hard to knock out. He's
absolutely.
got that head.
And you see Verdum knowing, these punches may not be everything I need them to be, but I'm going to rain down as many of them as I can to make them have to stop it. And that's what it was. I like to call it the most well-timed knee of, let's just say, Fabricio Verdum's anything in life. We'll never have a better time knee than that.
I mean, it was so unexpected. Even the ref was like, oh, shit, time to go to work. Did that just really happen?
That's amazing. I can't wait to see that.
Kev, I will say the
245
reason why it was so exciting is because of the differentiation between them. It was a true testament to the old school version of, when you have a big guy who's got a lot of knockout power and you've got a guy who's a great submission practitioner who's got to be strategic with what he's doing, it adds a level of, all right, this is going to be a fucking great fight. And I was stoked to see it. And congratulations to Fabricio Verdum. That was a great fight. And now I can't wait to see what happens between him and Kane. Alex, how do you see that fight going?
You know what? I have to say that as impressed as I was with Verdum, I don't think he's got enough for 100% Cain Velasquez. But it is a toss-up because of this injury, though. I mean, last time he came back from an injury, Dos Santos was able to catch him with a big right hand, Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. This is a toss-up. But I will say Cain at his prime, I still don't think Verdum could touch.
Yes.
So I'm going to go with Cain.
I would agree with that. I didn't see anything that Cain couldn't handle yesterday, but if I was Fabricio, I would be looking to find all of the rules to see if it's allowed that I can punch him in the knee or knee him in the knee or elbow him in the knee. Every possible variation of basically if I can headbutt him in the knee, but apparently headbutts are not allowed. But we'll get to that in just a few seconds, you guys. Great fight, Kev. Can't recommend it enough. Speaking of another great fight, Kev, you've got a fan in Ultimate Fighter fans. like
KG.
us. And Kevin Gastelum, or Kelvin, was very, very effective yesterday.
And he's like, I was really curious about how he does because he's been quietly phenomenal. Like, to win via submission, and I'm really curious to hear the details. He's been really great lately, so this is going to be interesting. What did he do against Jake Ellenberger? It happens in the first round. It's a submission. I don't know any more details than that.
Alex, I'll let you go ahead and describe how did you see it? I have maybe a very slight interpretation on it, but go for it.
No, Kevin was pretty much all over Jake. I mean, I didn't see Jake really coming with much. And then, towards like halfway through the round, Jake, got behind Kevin, tried to go for a suplex, got him down. But as soon as like his back hit the mat, Kevin bounced back, took Jake's back, and finished it out. I mean, I was definitely impressed by Kevin, big time.
Kev, I don't know how to explain this other than, when you're watching Kelvin, there's a very strong level of wrestling from a young guy who's explosive. That's really, I think maybe the best attribute of his submission game is that he's fast and he's aggressive when he's doing it. And for me, when I saw the difference between those two in wrestling abilities, I mean, Jake Ellenberger got a switch on Kelvin, and Kelvin just was like, fuck that noise, and re-switches around on him. And I just thought, I was like, fuck, man, that's tough. And Kelvin just knew that the neck was propped up just enough to sneak in for a rear naked choke, which, as we are quite familiar with on his work.
Favorite.
Yep.
No way. It wasn't really a RNC?
Yep. It was a rear naked choke. Basically 10 seconds to go in that round.
That's tough because Jake Ellenberger's staring at the clock, doesn't want to tap. That must have been real. That must have been what is it with Kelvin in that? They should change his nickname somewhere in there to like Kelvin RNC Gastelum.
I don't know that it flows off the tongue.
That's a shitty nickname. I'll get back to you guys. I'll get back to you guys. Good for Kelvin. Stoked.
We'll work on some great T-shirts for that. But Kelvin was one of the people who contributed to being a short night. Kev, we were done here, and here in LA time, we start the fights at 7 p.m. The entire card was over at 8:30.
You guys are welcome, because that never happens when I'm watching the fights.
Never.
Like, if I'm watching the fights, they go 6.5 hours.
Yeah,
which is impressive.
I was surprised at how quick they ended too. Jesus Christ.
But the main reason is because, and this is the pro con of getting what you want, everything ended, with the exception of the main event, on the main card in the first round. So not only did Kelvin have a great match, but we also had a great match between Ricardo Lamas with what some people would call an upset, but not Alex.
No.
Oh, no.
God,
okay, yeah, all right, I admit it. It wasn't that upset during the fight, anyways, because goddamn, Ricardo was definitely taking some shots, but he pulled it out, man.
What submission did he win via?
He went via guillotine, I believe is what he.
Yep.
Wow, very old school night on the chokes and submission game. No Barambola to heel hook. This is good. Just a real naked choke and guillotine. It's like, all right.
Although there was a little bit of kind of a heel hook game that took place during the preliminary card, but I got to tell you, Kev, it was interesting to watch Ricardo set up to the guillotine. It was pretty textbook, because when he saw it and he was able to make the transition into it, it's that kind of thing that you've drilled it so many times that it magically appears during your fight and you go, thank you.
I also see Montano. Was he a late ad? Augusto Montano?
No, and here's what we're going to talk about, because I think it is time to get around to some results between the two of you.
Yeah.
Because the whole card, I think, ended up having, what is this? Is this 11 fights? Something like that? Yeah. They just decided to add those after we basically finished doing our preview show. We previewed 9, and then I think they remembered, they're like, oh no, we only have 9 fights.
That's not enough. Did somebody count? Damn it. We gotta
Dana
add
White
2
walks in
more.
the room and is like, who the fuck didn't count?
Who's the fucking wise guy that forgot to fucking count to 11?
I can fucking count to 11 in fucking Spanish. What the fuck?
You're hilarious. I hope your next job works out. You're fucking fired.
So we went best out of 9, and before we do, I want to go ahead and ask you guys if you remember the stakes or the bet that you put up. Alex, do you remember what the bet was if you lost?
If I lost, I believe I had to get bow and arrowed.
Mm-hmm.
While I can't remember what I had to do while I was being bow and arrowed.
Well, you had to get bow and arrowed by a person of your choosing and say, I got bent by Kevin Phillips.
There we go.
Which Kevin is laughing as if he's never heard that, but that was his stipulation he came up with. Yeah. So it seems he's still entertained by his own words. Kev, what was your loss contingency?
I'm trying to look through my notes and I can't find it. So
it's okay, because I do remember. I have it written down, as a good host should.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It says that you are supposed to have a conversation between Oprah and Tony Montana on how great I am for 45 seconds.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, that would have to happen on air.
Okay, before we get there, let me ask this to Alex. Any nervousness on the results? Do you feel like you lost at all?
You know what? I am on the fence about it. I can't exactly recall. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous.
Okay, Kev, are you going to take that nervousness? Does that mean a good sign for you?
No, it doesn't, and here's why. Alex Perez won. I'm not this Alex Perez. Alejandro Perez.
Perez.
Jose Quinones. And I was just, as soon as that came across the ticker, I was like, God damn it.
Thank you, Big John McCarthy.
If I lost the game, but I won that one, I'd feel good.
So you're not saying that you feel bad about getting more or less picks. You're just defeated mentally by that one fight.
Correct. It doesn't take much.
One of the participants who happened to have the exact same name who ended up winning and choosing that fight based on his name.
Correct.
Okay. All right. It's time for results.
No, you don't want to just recap my thought process for the audience for another 47 minutes? Because I think they might find it. They're like, oh, that's actually really helpful.
That's fine, Kevin.
Go ahead. Results.
You can go ahead and comment all you want as somebody who didn't watch any of the fights and are really contributing to this conversation about UFC 180. That's fine. I understand. No. It's cool. It's your girlfriend's birthday. Totally. You didn't have a whole Sunday to watch. That's fine. You're too busy to be hungover. It's fine.
Who could have predicted her birthday would be that night?
Yeah, it's only an hour and a half anyway that you could have caught up on. But no, you watched Bellator. You made choices. If I were to tell you this, though.
Hey, baby, happy birthday. Guess what we're doing? Watching the fights. All right.
Yeah. I should have taken her to Hooters, where we could have enjoyed the viewing experience.
I will say, Alex, to be a little bit on Kevin's side, considering we have a podcast and we're pot committed in doing this, bitch. Basically, every time we get together with our significant others, it's pretty much that's the surprise that happens. Hey, babe, you want to go out to dinner? What? Oh, this fight's what?
Who's in the mood for bar food? I'm in the mood for some bar food. Like some cheap drinks. That sound good? Like some cheese fries? That's what I always say. As soon as I say cheese fries, she's like, you want to watch the fights.
So, well, all right, but to be fair, I was on my third date with a very pretty girl, and for my third date, hey, guess where I'm taking you? Hooters to watch some guys beat each other up.
Wow.
Sounds romantic, right?
Yeah. It's romantic.
This is also how you know Alex is a good-looking guy, because that's the only way. Like, a girl's like, third date, whatever. I'll go.
I was about to say, I was like, third date is adorable, though.
Yeah. She was like, sure, whatever. It's like, I don't think that has anything to do with your skill. I think it's just...
Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and reveal the results. Alex, how is your bow and arrow defense?
Oh, pretty good, actually.
It's pretty good. That's a good sign. But unfortunately, you're not going to need to use it. Kev, how's your Oprah and Tony Montana impression coming
They're
along?
terrible. They're awful. I did watch a little bit. I watched a little bit of Scarface to try and hone it back in, but I'll be sure to script out this bitch for the next podcast.
Oh, yes, the sweet taste of victory, baby. Mm.
Would you guys like to know the exact numbers?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, Kev, I was going to do it anyway. It didn't matter what you said. The results were the winner was Alex, who had 6 correct picks out of 9, which is a 66% correct number, whereas Kevin had 4 for 9.
Ugh.
I'll let you know, Kev, right out the gate, Alex was on his game. Alex's early picks are what ended up winning him this entire thing. Alex had the foresight of knowing his own namesake would win, Lamas would win, Jessica I would win, which you also agreed with him on.
Yeah.
He also had Hector. I don't know that he decided that Hector would get a guillotine himself, but Hector was pretty solid with that guillotine as well as Marco. And ultimately, Kev, he also picked Verdum to win.
I knew it wasn't pretty.
It was not.
Oof.
Between Hector Urbina and Verdum, it's just like, God damn it.
I'm going to go ahead and take a second to talk with our winner here. Alex, walk me through your picks. Tell me, what is it that you feel that gave you the foresight?
This is awful.
Really, it came from birth. Just my name. Just as soon as I was born, I had this name, and I feel like this is what it led up to, was winning this game and having Kevin do.
You know, a lot of people have to say that you really didn't do too much because Kevin loses a lot. What do you have to say in response to that?
I'll say, it took a little bit of my skill, but, history will show Kevin does defeat himself quite often.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. And let's go over to Kevin. Kevin, how do you feel about your loss? You're now in a losing streak again. Do you feel you can come back in this game?
I feel completely fucked trying to do Tony Montana. I don't think I'm in a pretty dark place, Raf. I was drinking margaritas, where it's like frozen margarita with a little beer upside down in it.
That's delicious.
And the only thing that's hurting my hangover more is the disappointment of these fights. I was on a tear. I was defying the odds, and I had done my research. And to get fucked like this on a national stage feels personal by the UFC.
Well, Kev, we do have a couple more fights to go through real quick. So let's give you a chance to really hear some good stuff to go over. We mentioned Hector got a great guillotine. There was some cool fucking finish. So when we left off, we were talking about Augusto Montano, and Augusto Montano had a really good stoppage from knees. Do you remember that at all, Alex?
I do. He was lighting him up against the cage, and I don't know what exactly hurt him though.
Yeah,
but he was just covering up against the fence, and Montano just started uncorking just a few left rights and those knees to the body, and that's it. The ref had to come in and stop it.
I will say, and I don't know if you got this impression, and we've never been in this particular moment in our lives, at least I haven't, but Chris Heatherly looked like he wanted the ref to stop that pretty bad.
Yeah, I'll agree. He definitely he wanted a way out.
Because he was pushed up against the cage, and those knees looked very, very difficult to take. But I think the defense stopped pretty quick into it, and he was like, dude, let's call it a day. Let me go to my after party because I don't want to be here. On the other side, we also, Kev, I don't know if you know this about Mexico, but I'm going to give you a secret. Should you ever be on a card fighting in the UFC or Mexico?
Perfect. Hold on. I'm writing this down because high probability on both.
100%. Do me a favor.
Yeah.
If you do not start by saying the following, Viva Mexico, you will die. You will 100% die because every person at least started their conversation like that or put it in midway through their acceptance speeches yesterday.
Okay. I have noted it.
The reason I bring this up is because Hector Urbina was very excited to win, and justifiably so. It was a great guillotine. But this was kind of the conversation. Did you see the post presser with him, Alex?
I did not. No.
Okay, so this is basically when they had Joe Rogan go up. And Joe Rogan also had the person who had the worst perm of all of the interpreters I have seen. But this lady was trying her best to try and give the best interpretations if you could. But this, my friends, made me laugh more than anything in the entire world. So Joe Rogan goes over to talk to Hector. Hector, this is exactly what happens. Joe, talk us through that submission. Hector, Viva la raza! Joe, okay, so, and they start showing footage. So you lock up that guillotine and you let it go. Viva Mexico! So that was the conversation. So that is the best takeaway I think I could tell you ever if you are speaking to a Mexican audience. Is that true, Alex?
I do believe so. Yep.
Okay,
I'm
good.
stoked to know this. I'm really excited.
It's very important. And before we finish, there are a couple little things that we should probably hit on. The Ultimate Fighters, they were decided yesterday, and that was Yar Rodriguez and Alejandro Perez. Do you have any notes on those, Alex?
You know what? The only thing I will say is big up to Big John McCarthy for making an example. You know, you can't allow those headbutts to happen. And I don't know if it went live, but a buddy of mine actually, I won't say who or how he got this, but he actually got some audio of Big John telling the table guy, you know what? I don't care what he fucking says. He fucking did that on purpose. Take 2 points away from him. Ooh. Big up to Big John McCarthy for manning up and making an example out of that.
And that's a tough call to make.
Yeah, and I don't know too many referees who could really get away with that, who have the gravitas to just be like, take 2 fucking points off of this.
Hey, you know what? If he doesn't make an example out of him, we're going to start seeing headbutts left and right, you know?
Absolutely.
Guys, if they feel like they can get away with it, they're definitely going to try to hit on it. I think that was the right move to do.
Wasn't it also hilarious that I think it's just a lesson in basic math for when they were doing the fight announcement for the decision, and the other guy's like raising his hand as if there was a way he could have won with the -2 points. I'm like, you get -2 points unless you've won every round. Then you're not going to win. You might tie. So I don't know that I'm going to raise my hands like, yay, tie. But I digress. Math.
I'd be excited, but I'm also not a professional fighter.
Yeah, of course. Well, you also aren't great at math either. But
I won. It's tied. What?
We do have to end our conversation on UFC 180 on this. And I'll preface it with this following story. I caught wind of it. I didn't see the fight, but they replayed it later at night. And the fight between Jessica Ai and Leslie Smith. I saw enough on my Instagram to say, oh, it sounds like a gross thing happened. And my fiance happened to be on her phone, and I look at her and she goes, what fight is this? I'm like, babe, whatever you do, don't look up. Do not look at this fight. She goes, something gross happened, huh? And I go, yes, it's going to scar you. Do not look up. And sure enough, during the replay of the fights, she looked up and was horrified at cauliflower ear getting busted open and bleeding and opening up in front of her face. And that's exactly what happened between Jessica Ai and Leslie Smith. Alex, your recollection / nightmares from that?
Oh, man, it looked like something out of World Star Hip Hop, you know, or just a random fucking gash on somebody's face. Oh, man, it was awful.
Oh,
it hurt me.
Oh.
It hurt me a little bit because.
Sorry.
So was that?
No, I made the mistake of Googling it. I'm all caught up. Sorry, go on.
Kev, I'm saying the same thing to you that I told to Kelly. Why would you do that to yourself?
Oh, she looks like she just got done fighting with the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
It was fucking awful. And it hurt me especially because I had cauliflower on both my ears, and I was like, wait, that could have happened? That was a possibility? That my ear could have exploded like that? Holy fucking shit.
Well, Alex, I can tell you this much. In my time training with you, I don't feel that I will ever make a decision to try and bust your cauliflower up like that. Deal?
Deal. Sounds good, Raf.
All
If
right.
you ever get some cauliflower ear on you, I'll definitely want to go for yours and maybe even get you some headgear.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's so nice. No, I've got the little baby bumps now, so like I don't even get to go up to you and say I have cauliflower ear. Like it's not even a thing. But like,
Verbal Tap exclusive. Raf and Alex will be gentlemen while rolling. Look out.
Yep.
Hot radio.
Well, well, don't worry, Kevin. That'll end profusely when you make it back out here and you get to roll with Kev. With Alex, I'm saying is he's not going to be so nice to you. I promise you that.
Well, I would
I'll
also
see you
just
in the
like to
back,
get.
Kevin.
I'll get in on this. I won't bust up your cauliflower ear either, Alex.
All right. Just because I know Raf wants to hear this, I will show no mercy. Captain will show no mercy towards Kevin.
I do. You know exactly that's something I'm like, yep, I would like to hear that. Alex, I want to thank you so much for not only playing over under Kevin, but reviewing the fights with us. And, dude, I'm glad you were able to make it out to a good bar and spend some time with some of our good training partners and enjoy the fights. Good sir.
Yeah, it was awesome all around, and this made it even better. So thanks a lot, guys, and I can't wait to see my my skit.
Well, that makes one of us. So, thank you very much.
And on behalf of both myself and Kevin, we also want to say thank you for all the hard work you've been doing. You've been covering some great events as a correspondent with us, be it the World Jiu-Jitsu Expo, Eddie Bravo Invitational. You're one of the easiest people to work with, and a lot of people don't know that you're behind the scenes helping out on all of those videos that we're putting up, and we just want to say thank you, buddy.
Hey, it's an experience of my life. Like, trust me, I'm more than happy to be there, and especially helping out you guys.
Verbal Tap fans, you haven't already heard me nerding out. This is a big one. This is a formative figure in my jiu-jitsu development. One of the first tough stars that I became a big fan of and have followed your fight career for a while, which spans over 34 matches, which is a crazy amount. We have on the line Mac Danzig. Mac, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. A little tired. I've been pushing it pretty hard all day today working, but now I'm off and yeah, looking forward to chilling out and having a talk with you guys.
Ooh, calm that down. You may not be excited after talking with us for about 5 minutes. You're setting the standard a little too high than we care to normally have on here. No, Mac, we were telling you this off air, and this is 100% true. We actually were fans of you, and Kevin and I independently. We never had talked about this, but we both watched your season of The Ultimate Fighter. Huge fans. Kevin, why don't you go first on your side?
Absolutely. At the time, it was the first show I was watching, and you came in as sort of like the experienced guy that was adding like some discipline in. And the show seemed to cut you as like a negative sort of person.
Yeah.
Or even like a call out, like a little show buddy, and you're not that person at all. But I was living in a fraternity, and they were driving me insane with their bullshit. And I was right there with you. I was like, no, he's trying to be a professional athlete. These other jamokes are at like auditioning for the Real World season 28, Tough Rejects. What say you to that? And this is what Raf and I were talking about. Like, how did you feel about how they posted you? And are Raf and I the majority or the minority of your experience post-show?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. You're definitely right. That's how they portrayed me. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't give them at least some actual footage, reflective of that for them to use and turn it into an extreme version of that. I mean, yeah, I was upset with the fact that I was surrounded by morons, but like it was just a very stressful time for me, and that's how I reacted to the stress. Whereas some of the guys, their ways of reacting to stress is either to just completely close up and shut down and just like be quiet and not do anything, or another way that some of these guys handled it was to get drunk and and act like fools. You know what I mean? But
It's worth
yeah,
noting you won, and
yeah.
in that final fight, your opponent is trying to run away from you at one point. So let's just all remember the details surrounding how crystal clear your domination in the house was.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing was, once I got on there, I realized, okay, half of these guys are serious about winning. Maybe a quarter of them are serious about winning, and then the other guys are just, they're just there, like you said, just to, I don't know, be on TV or whatever the reason was. There's, oh, if I can get on the show, that would be cool. And they get on the show and they're like, oh, I'm on the show now, great. And it really wasn't about winning to them. But one of my close friends who was a guy that I was a training partner with and, kind of a mentor of mine in a way, I looked up to him a lot for years. And before I left on the show, he was like, his last words of advice, it was actually the last time I talked to him. He was like, man, like go in there and really, don't forget what you're there for. You're there to win the thing. You're not there to, like act like an idiot and, you know what I mean? You're not there to just get your 15 minutes of fame on a TV show and be a fool. You're there to win it. And so I kept that in mind the whole time. And it's funny, like a lot of us were really worried about how we were going to be portrayed on the show. And we would all sit around, especially like our team, like me and some of the other guys that were on the same team as me. We shared rooms. And so we would all sit around and just talk about how worried we were at how they were going to portray us. And the one guy, Dorian, he's like, man, they're gonna play me like I'm this psycho and everything, and then and half of the guys there were sitting around going, "Oh, you kind of are psycho," and then for me, it was like I was convinced that they were gonna have me be like the anti-Christian guy because I remember when Matt Hughes brought Bibles in for everybody. I decided, okay, he's got Bibles, whatever. I'm not going to participate in this. So I went to go lay down or something because we had the practice off, which was a nice change of pace. And I laid down about 10 minutes and I sat up at one point and just looked up at what was going on and looked, and the camera people were panning from Matt Hughes reading the Bible to all the other guys reading the Bible, and then over to me, who wasn't, and then back to them. And I was like, oh no, like they're gonna do this.
Oh, fuck.
But yeah, I mean, the producers actually pulled us aside in the middle of the taping of the show about 3 weeks into it, and they were like, listen, stop sitting around and talking about how you think you're going to be portrayed or edited. Like, no, they're like, we don't know. No one knows until it gets sent to editing. That, like, don't talk about that. Just be yourself. You're on here because we picked you, and like we picked you because of your personality. So just talk about what's going on in the show, damn it. But, yeah.
I love that your
That's
Hunger
really funny.
Games-esque producers were like, cheese it. They're talking too much about the meta part of it. Shut up, you stupid fighters. You just act. Don't think about it. Okay,
Yeah,
bye.
I know that they were also mad because we would sit around and talk about movies and music and stuff, things that were out that had nothing to do with the house, like we were living
How dare
this,
you?
yeah, that we were living this constant train every day, twice a day, 4 hours, drive to the gym, drive back, train hard, like get ready to possibly fight within a few days. We were living that, so we didn't want to have anything to do with that. We wanted to separate ourselves from that, and we had no reading material, no contact to or from the outside world, no books, no magazines, no music, of course, no TV, nothing like that. And so we would sit around and talk about, like we would recite Pulp Fiction or something, you know what I mean? And they hated that. They just hated that.
Mac, I'm going to stop you right here. Kev, great idea to pitch to the Tough producers. Sideshow of Tough participants reenacting your favorite movies. I think you do
I
them as a
love
set of
that.
commercials that you can promote the show because sometimes the ratings, they need it. But I think it's a great way to integrate the personalities of the fighters. Anyway, discussing.
And now here, Mac Danzig doing Back to the Future 2. Action. I'd watch
Wish I
2
had that.
hours of that. I was gonna say, I'm like, I would watch
I
a
know.
sizable portion of that on YouTube before I got caught in a wormhole. I did 2
Yeah.
hours easily. Especially you've got like, you know, War Machine on that one. I'm remembering some names, but there were some funny people in that.
Yeah,
in that
like
rodeo.
everybody had their own little moment in that series. I don't think anyone, everybody at least had part of an episode dedicated to them. The one guy, Dan Barrera, I mean, we were convinced that the whole show was going to be about him, because he was just such a nut, and he would, go into the bathroom, like, and he'd be in there forever, and he would come out and he'd be all amped up, and we were convinced. We were like absolutely certain, and we still don't know to this day if he did. He swore he wasn't, but we were convinced that he had somehow smuggled coke onto the show and was like doing it in the bathroom before he would like come out. But then on his one episode that they did feature him in, because they didn't put much of him on there across the whole season, just the one episode that he fought in. The one episode that they showed stuff of him, they showed this hidden camera from inside the one part of the bathroom, and he was like looking in the mirror, shadow boxing, like bouncing around, talking to himself in the mirror, and he wasn't doing coke, and if he was, they didn't show it. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, well, like that makes sense. I'll accept that. He was a definite nut, Dan Barrera.
That
I
might
don't
be
know what
weirder.
happened.
You thought he was doing coke and he was just in there having a shadow box moment with himself frequently. And that was what really hyped him up. That's what sent him into fifth gear.
I just like somebody
the guy
reviewing
was
the
crazy.
show. I just like somebody reviewing the show going like, man, it really took a turn this episode. What? Like,
Or he was doing coke and the producer cut of that's just like, well, we obviously can't show the 32 minutes of blow he was doing.
Right.
So we
Right,
should-
right. Yeah. I have no idea really what was going on. But he was the craziest, oddest person out of everyone there, and yeah, we were pretty sure that he was going to be the focal point of the entire show, but it ended up not really being that way. In the end, I mean, yeah, they did portray me as, oh, you're this like grumpy guy and all this stuff, but I think that's just like putting a magnifying glass on one aspect of how I reacted to being in a situation like that, which was, being surrounded by 90% of those 16 people were idiots, so
Vegan.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
veganism
I
was
love
still
that.
new then, and there was a lot about it. Like there was a
But
lot
I
of
did love the fact that it's like, oh my god, guys, he came down with a case of vegan.
yeah. Oh, you're
Crazy-
a vegan right
the,
now.
The vegan crazies.
Yeah,
I know
you're going
they
through a confused
they
time.
somehow managed to pull out of me saying the words I'm vegan, and then at some other point I said I don't eat that stuff or I don't eat that crap. Like they'll chop up any parts of your speech. It's almost like, I don't know how much of the early Simpsons you watched, but there was this one Simpsons episode where Homer was like, being interviewed by this guy, and they were making fun of those shows like Hard Copy and a current affair and all that.
Yeah.
And they were interviewing him, and they were like framing him basically about he supposedly touches girls' butt, and they were chopping up everything that he said. They were taking half pieces of sentences and like splicing them together, and there was a clock behind him, and the clock kept changing different times during mid-sentence, and that's almost what they do, because they can edit it so well with a little bit of voiceover here, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they can take something that you said, a half of a sentence that you said on week 1, and blend it in with a sentence that you said in week 5, and the next thing you know, you're saying, like something bigoted or something, like who knows,
I
and
think the funny part is as you're describing that, I'm pretty sure I remember that exact episode of Homer being like, "I want some of that sweet, sweet Venus."
yeah, and then I grabbed her sweet can. Yeah, like they just kept changing, and then he was like, "No, Mr. Simpson, no!" Like he was like scared or something like that, and then they showed sorry about that. They showed like uh like a paused frame of him, like it was you know what I mean, it even had that fallout like when you would pause a
Yeah,
VHS tape, yeah, crazy.
that's hilarious. We've never ever compared The Ultimate Fighter to The Simpsons, but I'm glad you did it because now I
Yeah.
just realized the gold mine that we've totally not been using this entire time we've been doing Ultimate Fighter reviews on this show.
Okay, like here's an example, right? They didn't even show this on the show, I don't think. If they did, I don't remember it. But at one point, Jens Pulver came in, and Jens knows Matt Hughes and Robbie Lawler. They have the same management, and they train together. They know each other well. And Jens was in town and decided to stop by, and so he came in, and he's like says hi to everybody, and I know Jens. I've known him for a long time, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And everything's cool. And then at one point, we're waiting to warm up, and he starts talking to the guys, and they all start crowding around him, and everybody's like listening to him tell a story or something like that. And I'm just sitting down by myself, didn't think anything of it. I'm getting ready to train. I'm changing. I'm stretching a little bit. I know training's coming up, and everybody's like standing around in this circle talking to him. I never thought anything of it. We practiced, forgot about it. Then the next thing I know, when we get back to the house, they're pulling me into an interview, and I'm like, okay, whatever. They do this to me every day. And the guy asks me, he's like, so when all the other guys were talking to Jens, you weren't over there talking to him. Do you have a problem with him? Like they were trying to get me to, like, they were immediately trying to get, like, create, like, manufacture some sort of conflict between me and Jens Pulver, and I was like, no, you know what I mean? I didn't let them
Oh
pull
man.
me into that. And it's like,
That sounds so terrible, and I don't know why I'm not producing this show. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you get this about me, Mac, but this is all I do. On a daily basis, this is what I'm doing to Kevin when he doesn't even know it. I'm like, Kev, did you know what that last guest said about you? No, why? What? Oh, it wasn't good. They didn't really like your questions. It was. They also said your beer and bolo is pretty weak, but I don't know anything about that.
And I should mention, Mac, we're also going to cut up this interview. So it's just me and Raf asking you absurd questions and taking your answers out abstract.
And we can
totally.
actually.
I expect it. I expect to answer with what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm vegan. Fuck you. So,
I think we actually have the wording and ability to splice in him doing The Simpsons. I want some of that sweet, sweet Venus.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm stoked about that.
Throw a little track behind it. People are going to never know. And this is my fault for taking us completely down the Ultimate Fighter 6. It was just a big fan moment for me to hash that out. And it's obviously been on all of our chests. I feel better giving you the chance to speak your side of it. I do feel better.
thank you.
You've been up to a ton of stuff since, and this is what I think transcends, like, amongst the jiu-jitsu and MMA community. You're seen as one of those guys that's done a lot in the artistic side, and I think both Raf and I agree as, like, aspiring comedians to be. We like the draws and ties between the art and the martial arts training. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like to put out, and I guess it was a documentary, right, about your art show and the different things you were doing.
There was no. I've never had a completed documentary on just me and like the stuff I'm doing. I mean, there's been little like a 5 minute segment devoted to me and my art for like a show called MMA 30, and then there was like another like 5 or 6 minute thing I did that was just about me and my photography for MMA Weekly. But yeah, I've never had like an actual full length featured documentary. There's been two that have tried to do that, but they never like got completed and everything. So yeah.
Okay. It was like I feel like I was watching you and another fighter do a really cool art exhibit, and
Yeah.
that's when I first got exposed to
Okay.
your photography and was just blown
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
because I
So
hadn't
that's
seen that.
probably Chad George.
Yes,
Like
yes, Chad
yeah,
George,
yeah.
the fighter.
He, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like there's a documentary called Occupation Fighter that this crazy German guy did on Chad, and then during that one, during that documentary, they have like a segment on the art show that he and I did together, and yeah, so that was pretty cool. For the most part, my photography is just focused around me. I'm not really necessarily trying to promote it. It's a really hard business to be like involved in it if you're trying to make a living out of it. And I see the other people involved in that line of photography, like the nature, wildlife, fine art, landscape photography professional community, and those people are there's a certain level of desperation that these people have to promote themselves because of the way that the internet is now, and how important it is to do all the social media stuff and all that crap. And I have kind of strayed away from that as much as I can because I want it to be pure. I want this to be something that I enjoy doing. In the moment that I start to try to sell myself and all this, like really trying to push it as a profession, I think I might, like lose how much I love it. It's one of those things I don't get a chance to do very often, to be honest with you, because the kind of photography that I like doing, it all involves me traveling to really remote places, and that involves a ton of planning, and it involves time away from working and time away from my daughter, and it involves me being like, like having the financial resources to do something like that. So it's been pushed back quite a bit, especially in the past few years, because the way I do things, I'm not really into going to like the national parks and pulling over at some scenic overlook that a million other yuppies are standing around at, pointing their cameras at. Like my whole thing is to go to really remote places that are also aesthetically pleasing and have cool geology and stuff, and take photos of things that aren't really common. I mean, don't get me wrong, my portfolio does have like plenty of stuff from national parks and stuff in it, but I really, and especially lately, have been trying to get the things that are not often photographed, and I just like being in those places. So if I go there and I plan this trip and the conditions are bad, the light isn't good, it's okay, I mean, it does suck and everything that I don't get shots, but that's not what it's about to me. Like the shot is just a representation of the place and how I felt there, and I just like it's just a great excuse for me to get out and go to these places.
I mean, here's the nice part is, sometimes when you have a guest and they do an extracurricular activity, and you're like, man, you do an extracurricular activity. It's pretty rough. But let's talk about it. Like your photography is actually good, and I've had the opportunity of looking at your photography and doing as an avid photographer myself. What was it that really got you into doing that? And I guess was it also a nice departure from fighting every once in a while to do that?
Yeah. It was definitely that was the biggest thing to me. It was like I had immersed myself in fighting, which I love, but there's a obvious level of contention that you have to deal with all the time, like always proving yourself, whether it's in the training room or the actual fight, and constantly getting ready for, okay, I've got to fight this person. I've got to stop them from hitting me, and I've got to hit them. Like years and years of that. And I'm finally like, you know what? I love nature. I love being away from like large populations of people, and I like to settle down into that, and here's a chance for me to do something like that. And so yeah, it was a definite balance thing for me. I needed that in my life to balance things out. And the times that I started getting really into photography were when like right around the times that I was having a really hard time dealing with my little, tiny thimble full of fame in the world of MMA, and how I was being looked at and portrayed and treated and everything. I just didn't, I'm very sensitive to that sort of thing. So this was my escape from all that crap. And I ended up doing like photography. I've always been into video and still photography since I was a teenager, and I had a good camera, and I took some like community college courses when I was a teenager, and worked in the darkroom and stuff back in the film days, and that was cool. But then I didn't have enough money or time or whatever to keep up with it, and then it wasn't until I fought in Pride in 2007, like pretty much like 11 years later, that I actually was like, okay, I've got money right now at the moment to buy something other than food or gas or, pay the rent. Like I've actually got some extra money. Like, what do I do with it? And I was like, I really want to get back into photography. So that's kind of how it started. It like restarted in 2007, and the spark had first started, in like 96 or something when I was a teenager. But yeah, so just got into it, and yeah, it's definitely like a balance type of thing, and a good thing for me to get my mind off of all the negative stuff like surrounding the things that go on in the MMA world, and crap that people are saying, and all these ideas that people have about you as a person, and it's kind of hard to deal with that. I mean, I can't even imagine being a real celebrity. You know what I mean? Like what these people go through. I mean, no wonder they're all so fucked up. I mean, or most of them are. I mean, like like
That and the getting beat up for a living, like the MMA path is a rough one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's like
it's
you just
hard.
got hit in the head, but you hit the other guy in the head more. Tell us your thoughts. Like they put him on display immediately.
Yeah, for sure.
Be much harder to do any other gamut. Well, as you're talking about it, what was your ride like? Because we haven't even really talked so much about your MMA career. Have you been doing photography? So did you pick it up literally at the height of your fighting in the UFC? Pretty frequently, it felt like you were fighting all the time while you were fighting. Are you still doing photography? And talk to us about riding both of those waves.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So what happened was I got into photography briefly as a teenager, and then I wasn't able to keep up with it. And then I was basically too busy and poor for years and years, like trying to become a fighter and everything, and living in California. And I didn't have the time for any hobby. I mean, maybe like once every 3 or 4 months I'd buy a CD or something. Other than that, I just, you know what I mean? It was just like the starving artist in the first world type of lifestyle. So I was just, waiting for the chance to have the time and resources to do this sort of thing. So yeah, it was like 2007. And I had just fought in Pride. I hadn't even been on the show yet, and I started getting into it hardcore. And I had to, when I went on to the TV show, I was like, oh man, I'm so into this photography thing now. In like 6 weeks, I'm gonna have to go without taking any photos. That sucks. And
They didn't
so,
really talk about it.
huh? No,
You
they
didn't really
didn't.
hear about
There
it
was a
while you were
lot
on the
of
show.
things. There
They
was a
should have
lot of
gave you a camera, let you show some skills. Like I'm just saying,
yeah,
we had
you
downtime.
you weren't allowed to have any type of anything like I mean they barely let me bring like a blender in, you know what I mean, like you couldn't
That's
bring in
so
anything,
sad.
right? No reading material. I mean, we know what we would do. We were allowed to have journals to write stuff down with. I couldn't care less about TV, to be honest with you. Like I didn't miss that at all, and didn't think about it because it's not a part of my life. But like um the the no music thing really bothered me, right? Especially at the time. And I would sit there and I would try to like play songs in my mind so I could memorize the lyrics and write down the lyrics. So I'd write the lyrics down and then I would just read the lyrics to myself, playing the songs in my mind and just hum it to myself. That was my way of listening to music. That's when you know you're like close to going crazy.
I was about to say, no wonder we get so many freaking crazy moments on The Ultimate Fighter where you see the descent into madness. And I think that's one of the things that I always try and keep in perspective when we are writing jokes, because we write jokes about The Ultimate Fighter and
Sure.
and we have a good time at their expense. But
Yeah.
like there's also a sensibility of not being too much of a dick, because you
Yeah.
realize they've essentially taken you from, I guess, life and then put you in an insane asylum and said like, "Hey, look at these other psychos. All right,
Yeah.
have at."
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. I mean, they take the formula for the show is to take people from all walks of life with all different kinds of personalities and just put them all into this science experiment and just see like how what the reactions are like. And that's pretty much how it goes, you know. And yeah, it'll test you. It'll take you to the limit, you know. That's why you see so many things where these dudes are, you know, like they have a breakdown, they're screaming and crying, or they're getting drunk to deal with the pressures on the show, and then they act like complete imbeciles and fools. Now, like granted, I'm not saying that um, all these people are wonderful people just being exposed to a bad situation. I mean, a lot of these people are assholes and idiots, you know, like a lot of the people's like pulled into the Ultimate Fighter. You know, you got your Richie Hightowers. These people exist, like they're losers or douchebags. But like add on top of that the formula for the show, and it's just a recipe for disaster. I mean, that's why you got guys like Andy Wang, for example, who's like a great human being. He really is a good guy. Just like, I mean, he's treated like a laughing stock. You know what I mean? Like his career is just like laughed at by a lot of the internet people, and it's because of the way that he was portrayed on the show and what elements of that formula like pushed him to react the way that he did one time, and then they didn't show much of him except for that one reaction that he had. And so now everyone just remembers his fight and the way he fought, and then remembers his breakdown afterwards. And it's like it's crazy, you know. It's a it's a tough position to put yourself in, but you know, that's the way it goes. You know, you either do it or you don't.
I mean, Mac, I have to ask you this. Have you watched any of The Ultimate Fighter since being on it?
Okay, so when the show was airing, which is like it starts airing about 3 months after you're on the show, and back then the way it was set up was you were like sworn to secrecy and you weren't allowed to tell anyone, not even your mom, what happened on the show, right? And
I hope that's the actual language in the contract, especially your mom.
yeah,
Even your mom.
Although
especially
I'd like to think in my head that's Dana language, where he's like, especially your fucking mom. You say a
Don't
fucking
even
word,
tell your
you're
fucking
fucking
mom.
dead to
talk
me.
to your fucking mom. Don't tell your fucking brother. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's basically it. I mean, not only do they have these conversations with you, and Dana has them, the head of the production company has them with you, but yeah, you sign off this thing that says that you're not going to disclose anything that transpired on the show. So anyway, during that time you wait, and then about 3 months in, they start airing the show, and then during the time that the show was being aired, what they would there was this what the production company wanted me to write a blog. So I wrote a blog, a weekly blog for the show, and what they would do is they would send me a DVD of it the day before it was going to air. Like basically, like that's as early as they felt comfortable leaking anything, right? So they'd send it to me the day before. I'd watch it, and then I'd have enough time to write a blog and send it in to the blog guy so that you know, he could post it as soon as the episode aired East Coast time. So I saw it. That's my long-winded explanation of yes, I did watch the show while it was happening. After that, I never watched it again. I did like the one episode that was I was kind of featured in. I think I had that for some reason. Like I think I had it on a device or something like that, like on an iPad or something, and I think I may have watched pieces of it here and there, but then I didn't watch it or any other Ultimate Fighter show for years and years, and it wasn't actually until about 4 months ago I actually, not, once I decided to retire and made peace with this whole debacle of a career, I was finally like, going back and looking at it and being like, okay, I'm actually kind of proud of what I did, and I don't mind the silliness of the show, and it's not this like serious thing that I'm upset about, like the way the show went and the way that people acted and the way I was portrayed or anything like that. I was just like, whatever, like it's all old news now. It's all like I've come to terms with everything. And so I did watch, like, I don't know, like a good third or half of the whole thing about 6 months ago, and I was reminded of some funny stuff and everything. And it was all right. It was cool.
What about it changed for you? I mean, Kevin and I, we jokingly say that we've watched some of it and we've ingested so many fighters and so many of the diatribes. And that's why we have a segment on our show called the 1 Minute Review. And it just became of all of the formulaic parts of the Ultimate Fighter, like fighters plus closed off from reality, multiply alcohol, divide time and space equals crazy fights outside. So like we
Yeah.
came up with this algorithm of making fun of it where half the time
Right.
the jokes were already there. So did you see any changes or kind of modifications? Was there anything different, or was it like the same as you remember it?
Oh, like what happened on the show? Like
Just
as
from
opposed
like
to,
from what you remembered it looking
right.
like when you were
Yeah.
on it to what it looks like now.
Okay, so you're asking me to reference like how I viewed it when I just watched it a few months ago, you mean? Like,
Yes.
or just okay. Yeah, it the thing is, I don't know. I guess that's kind of a hard question to answer because I had already seen the episodes, so I knew the difference at the time in 2007 of the episodes and their difference to reality. But when I watched it again, I was just reminded of, yeah, that's the way the episodes went. You know what I mean? The way everything was edited. I I think that it was probably uh they omitted a lot of things, and I think that's what I tried to do on that blog was diplomatically explain that this happened, this happened, this happened, and they failed to show that or mention that. They're filming all the time, and there's only so much that they can show in a 42-minute show or however long it is. And so yeah, I mean there were things that were a lot different, but I do remember now, they were able to capture a lot of it. Maybe they didn't portray each person's personality completely accurately or fairly, but that there was a lot of things that happened that transpired that they actually captured pretty well. It wasn't all bad. I'd say it was like 50-50, which is a lot better than it could have been, you know.
Sure, referencing MTV again.
Yeah.
We only, as you could tell, we could talk to Mac for hours. I'm just talking to the listeners now. So we have a few more topics we have to ask you about.
Yeah.
The Legend of Korra. Raph was telling
Uh-huh.
me you guys have a mutual friend through a very funny way. Because I was looking at it and I was like, Raph, do you know if this is Wikipedia truth or true? And it was that you have been working on The Legend of Korra as an MMA consultant.
Yeah, I actually worked, yeah, so like some of the things I did, I got credited for that in The Legend of Korra. Here's the thing. The main stuff that I did, like the hands-on things that I did were for their first uh television series before that on Nickelodeon, which is called Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? That those ones were that was like, kind of what I was helping them out with, and then like once that was done, like then when they were started getting ready, everything. Oh, excuse me, sorry, scratch that. I was doing the legend. Sorry, yeah, yeah. See, these things happened so long ago that
That's an edit on the fly, people.
yeah,
What you
edit
just
on
heard
the
is the sausage being made.
scratch that.
Scratch it.
Just forget that you heard that. No,
He's an MMA fighter. If you don't, he will find you. He will strike you efficiently. If I
or
remember
you
his
could
game
say
well.
he's an MMA fighter. Have some sympathy or have some understanding. His brain doesn't work properly half the time. No, I
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. For the Legend of Korra, they hadn't started it yet. See, I get confused because they've had 4 seasons of it now, and there's always like a little break in between them, airing and everything, and what goes on. But yeah, I did work for them for the Legend of Korra stuff, and that was actually even before they had everything written and before everything was, like decided on how the show was exactly going to go, and it was still in its preliminary stages. And so, yeah, they brought me in to do that. I happen to be really good friends. Like he's pretty much my best friend, is the co-creator of the show, Brian Konietzko. And so, he brought me in to basically, like, they just filmed me and another fighter friend of mine that I brought in doing some moves, because their whole thing is they wanted everything to be accurate on the show. They didn't want everything to look like some generic martial arts stuff or look corny. They wanted things that, like, they wanted the body mechanics and the movement of the people that were doing the combat on the cartoon. They wanted it to look realistic and everything. So I just went on there, and we just went over all different types of movements, and did a lot of filming and just did a lot of, like, visual explanation of how everything works. And yeah, that was pretty cool. Like, Brian's a great guy. He's helped me out a lot. He actually even got me some auditions to work his voice talent on the show, but I botched every one of them because I'm horrible at it. But like Henry Rollins, I don't know. I guess he's nifty. He's got some little talent with his voice. He's got a recurring character on the show, like all these other people do. Like David Faustino's on the show. Bud from
Bud
Al
Bundy.
Bundy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all these people, like, and I mean, don't get me wrong, these people are like involved in show business and acting and stuff, and so they understand how to use their voice a little bit better, or whatever. But I thought, maybe I could pull this off, and yeah, I blew it twice, and that would have been a really cool career to get into, because those people that are in like the voice acting guild or whatever it is, like they just
I
show
believe
up.
you're talking about Vag. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they
God
show
damn
up
it,
in
Kevin.
their pajamas and read some lines and then say, "Okay, take it easy," and they just walk out and they get paid good money. You know what I mean?
They do.
That sounds like the life to me. I wish I could have done it right, but I had two
I mean,
chances or three and I blew them.
Mac, I'll tell you this much, man. I don't know what on this podcast right here. My job is to do the impressions of all of the fighters. That doesn't necessarily led itself to being a super lucrative job in itself, because not a lot of people
Not
go,
yet.
Raf, do that GSP impression. Like, you literally have to maneuver and be like, guys, work with me. Do you know the fighter named GSP? No? It's going to be a rough day at the office. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Woo! But, the funny part to me is when I had heard that you were doing fight choreography, helping them out, it was such a aggravating thing to hear that not being said more, because that's such a cool application of martial arts that nobody really gets to do.
Yeah.
When you get to do it, does it look kind of cool? Like, how does it look like watching your fights in animation form?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did enjoy that. Like, Brian actually had to point out to me, like, a few of the distinct scenes that were actually pieces of the movements that we filmed, you know what I mean? Rather than just me showing them the elements of everything and you know, some a little bit of a move coming up here or there, but like some of them were like the actual, like here's the actual entire movement. And yeah, I thought that was cool. I mean, it's awesome, you know, to see that, you know, get interpreted in a way, you know, like something cool like animation live, or you know, like right on TV. I mean, I grew up watching cartoons, and I know how special that show is to a lot of kids and everything, and that just would have
Absolutely.
been so cool to me, you know what I mean, as a kid to see something like that. And I don't know, I just really admire what they're doing. You know, anyone that makes that still, like, I mean, like, it's for older kids, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's not a younger kids show. It's obviously like an action show for, you know, geared towards like the older crowd, but it's just so cool to be able to live your life writing and drawing and creating this whole world, you know, and this is just all geared towards like entertainment for children and childhood, and staying in that and making like a career out of that. It's pretty impressive. So like, yeah, for me to be part of that, that was cool. And yeah, it was cool to see the moves, you know, that was awesome for sure.
I mean, I know you are retired now, but if I were you, I would throw that into my highlight reel. I would throw those animated sequences being like, yeah, I fucking fought in those scenes. Don't
Yeah,
discount that.
there's
Those
gonna be
lightning
Mac
streaks in the
Danzig.
background, totally me too.
He calls it the Danzig special. You get lightning behind it. He's like, it's a lens flare power I have. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I like
there's
that I'm now creating you as like a photography superhero that also does MMA. Hey, we might be on a good
I
comic
heard
book
it.
spree.
I heard the series. I heard the cash store opening right as you said that, Kev.
it's
Yeah.
funny you mention that, because Joaquim, who is a mutual friend of Raf and I, he's like he created this little, I don't know, I think it was just one picture, but he took like a bunch of his friends and had them all, you know, like not as superheroes necessarily, but kind of like as these characters, right? And I was like, that really looks like me. And I had a camera around my neck, and I was looking at the picture, and I was like, that looks so awesome. I was like, that looks like me. And then I asked Brian, I was like, hey, ask Joaquin if that's supposed to be me. And he said yes. And I was like, it meant more to me. It made me feel so good and meant more to me than like than uh than I don't know, like half of the accolades I've gotten in fighting. I don't know why it is, but like the fact that someone would make like even just in one picture a cartoon character of me, that was just the coolest thing in the world. I just
Well, it's
thought
because
that
you're
was awesome.
immortalized in a way that few people are. Like I've never had that in my own experience. And let's take a moment to just talk about how awesome Joaquin is. Kev, um, you don't know this guy, but
I don't. He sounds awesome.
he will. I'm about to blow your mind. So super great at drawing. Does these sick recreations of like all of your favorite cartoons. He like revamped all of GI Joe, but not just that, Kev. He also is a badass at jujitsu as well. So like
Oh, that's not
living
fair.
the dream. So like when I met this guy, I was looking at him. I'm like, dude, you're cool. Like you don't need to know me. You're don't waste your time. You're just gonna waste your time being bored. And he's just like, you like jujitsu? You like the Ultimate Fighter? I go, yeah, I like the Ultimate Fighter. He's like, oh, cool. What'd you think of this season? And even then, I would talk profusely about UFC and whatnot. I was like, oh yeah, I liked it. And at the time, Mac had just finished, and I was like, what do you think of Mac? And I was like, I actually like him a lot. He's like, really? And I go, yeah, I thought the series was portraying him as this one guy. And he's like, oh, I know him. I wasn't sure if I was gonna tell you, but yeah, I know him. He's really good plans. And we had this great laugh, and I was just like, dude, no, he's a really nice guy. And just this greatness of knowing Joaquin and Mac, where friends made total and complete sense. Because when you talk to Mac, you get this sense of, yeah, dude, totally chill, relax, teaches a fucking great seminar. I got the opportunity to take your seminar out in September, and it was what is it? Submission or striking for submissions, right?
Yeah. I think that's what we decided to work on. The curriculum was that day. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, Mac, I'm never going to be striking for submissions in my life. But I was
Oh, you
like,
never
you
know,
know,
man.
don't placate me on this. I am 100% aware that I may do grappling, but I'm never going to be hitting people
Well,
because it
like
would just end
what
poorly
if you
for me.
just what if you find yourself in that situation in life where you have to defend
Uh,
yourself or somebody else? I mean, you seem like the kind of guy who's out at nightclubs every single night,
You do.
like you may find yourself in a situation where you have to take on 3 or 4 bouncers in order to, meet up with your buddy Dan Barrera, who has the white stuff on the other side of the room in the bathroom, and in order to do that, you've got to strike for submissions. No, I hear you,
Absolutely.
man. I hear you, but they're good skills though. Then you can see the pieces to the puzzle, how that all fits in MMA, and like
But
how
that's
you know
the beauty of it is you get to see how you teach, and I feel like that's an extension of you as not just a jiu-jitsu guy, but as a martial artist, a guy who did MMA. And so it was funny for me, and Kevin and I haven't even talked about this, but we were both so young when we were watching it and getting it that I realized I was like, when I did the seminar with you, I go, I think I actually learned some variation of aspects of jiu-jitsu when I was watching you do it. And I was like, that's so sick. He's teaching me this. And I remember watching him do this. So
that's cool.
it's a true testament to you that you have a great teaching ability, and it's fun to watch. Now that you're retired, you're kind of doing some other stuff, other ventures. I know you've even refereed. How was
Yeah.
life post fighting, and what's it like being on the other side as a referee?
Okay. Yeah. So post fighting, and I'll be completely honest with you. Like it's been pretty scary. Like this was the transition that I've been dreading for years, and it was always in the back of my mind, and the thoughts of it worried the heck out of me, and as I worried about it, it probably played on my performance as a fighter, because and don't get me wrong, I'm not the only one who feels that way. All these guys are 1 loss or 2 losses away from getting canned, and having to find work somewhere else, and how far do you want to take it? Like how far can you take it? How much can your body take? Are you going to have your contract forever? All these types of things go through your head when you're not an employee, you're an independent contractor, and you're extremely expendable in this sport. And so I had worried about that forever. And then when it came, it hit me hard. Even you'd think I would have been prepared for it, but being like a single parent basically in LA, it's pretty difficult to deal with the prospect of not having enough financial like goods to carry you and your kid through the month, through a couple more months. And so like it's been really scary in that regard, and also I don't want to be one of those people who ends up doing something that they don't like to do. So I have all these like little ventures, these little tools and these things that I can do to make a living possibly, but it's like, which path do I want to take? I can't kind of dabble in all of them. If I want to actually do something and make a living at it, I've got to commit to at least one of them and take it all the way. And which one actually has the potential to provide that for me, and which one do I like doing the best? And it's been hard, you know what I mean? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been scary, and I've felt pretty worried about the whole thing for quite some time. But I'm starting to ease into the way everything is working, and I'm, instead of taking this look at it like, oh well, I need to just take one thing and go after it because that's the only way it'll work. Instead, I'm still trying to take my time and feel everything out. And that's why I did stuff like the refereeing thing because one, like Big John McCarthy got me into it. He had asked me if I was interested in doing referee stuff, and I said, yeah, I am. And he put me through his like it's like a 3-day weekend of certification for becoming a judge and a referee. And that stuff is hard. That's no joke. Most people fail that. And he put me through that, and he's just I if I could say one thing about anybody on this show, like mention somebody, I would just mention what a great human being that guy is. I mean, he's probably the only person who has been involved with the sport since its very beginning, since its conception. Like from day one, John McCarthy was involved in the sport. He's the referee since UFC one, and that guy is like the only person from that era who is still relevant. I mean, nobody else is relevant that was from there. I mean, like Art Davie just wrote a book, and like Horian Gracie, his last name is Gracie and everything, but like none of these people are relevant now. You know what I mean? Good, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just the truth. And he is, and he actually really cares about fighters. He cares about the sport, and he cares about fairness in every single fight. And it's like his passion. He's made it his life's goal. And anyway, that dude helped me out a lot, and he was the one who kind of took me under his wing as far as the refereeing goes. And I got a chance to referee a couple different events, and I'm gonna keep doing more of them. I need to just build it up. It's not one of those things where people make a whole lot of money at, and it takes some time. You really need to know what you're doing. And just because I'm a fighter doesn't mean I'm gonna be a great ref. I think like a lot of fighters will make bad referees, but for me, I think I'm a little bit different. I think I'm gonna make a good referee, but it's gonna take some time. And it's kind of interesting being a referee. I mean, like I get a little more nervous at this point than I did for a lot of my fights because I'm just like, man, these guys have trained for so long to get to this point. I don't want to screw it up or slip on a banana peel and ruin this person's night because I stopped it
Just
unnecessarily
talk
here.
like a cop and stay authoritative, and you'll be fine. Yeah, not many. You don't hear about many fighters making the transition, so it's definitely a different skill set to see it versus to call it
Yeah.
and be a part of it.
I would rather
Very
be a
different.
referee than a judge, though, to be honest with you. Like judging is really, really hard because of the criteria, like the way that it's set up, or
Let's
not even
tell
just,
ourselves that they're
well,
making it
dude,
harder than they need to. I
the,
always know who won, Mac. It's cut and
well,
dry to me.
I'll tell you
I,
what, man.
to
Like
be
like
fair, Kevin has a very big problem figuring out who wins fights.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the
and
hardest.
I don't think he's alone. I think that happens a lot, judges and Kevin included. But it is a difficult thing. But Mac, do you think that some people think that if you put a fighter in that seat, that suddenly it's much easier to judge because that's a perspective some people have.
No, here's what I'm trying to say. The judging, the scoring criteria is so fucked up and convoluted that like there's a reason why like people often, okay, if there's a bad decision, people are always like, those fucking judges, I can't believe these people, they're incompetent. Listen, they may very well be, but that has nothing to do with what happened there. Like they could be complete like vegetables that just scribble like some stuff on a card and who knows what it is, or they could be someone who has studied the criteria and has like an education and a lot of experience doing it, and they might still come up with the same like seemingly ridiculous result. It's because this criteria was set up for boxing. Is set up for like 10-round, 12-round boxing fights where you have guys that are often really, really evenly matched, and it comes down to small increments. So let's have a 10-point must system. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for 3 5-minute MMA rounds. You can have one round where absolutely nothing happens and no one mounts any offense. And then you can have another round where so much stuff happens in just 3 minutes out of the 5-minute round that it's all over the place. And these judges are picking 10-9s for all of this. That's why, like, the GSP versus Johnny Hendricks thing that everyone was upset about. It's because these people are told not to use all of the 10 points. They never use all the 10 points. They only call it a 10-8 if there's a huge discrepancy and someone gets the living crap beat out of them and mounts no offense themselves. Otherwise, it's a 10-9. And then they're also told to score rounds that are pretty much dead even, 10-9s as well. So you have GSP winning a 10-9 by like the smallest, thinnest sliver of a margin, and then you have Johnny Hendricks winning a 10-9 by a very large margin. These two things don't add up, but guess what? 10-9 here, 10-9 there, 2 rounds in the books, the fight is even at that point. You know what I mean? Like this is the problem. So I don't like being put in that position because I don't like the way that it's set up, and I end up having to make decisions based on like strange scoring systems that I don't agree with. And so like I would much rather be a referee, because I do, like, as a referee, you do dictate and decide, okay, like I'm going to stop this fight, or I'm going to let this fight go, or I'm going to disqualify this guy, or whatever. You have to make those decisions. But those are easier to make than saying like, okay, these guys just fought their asses off for 3 rounds and it was really, really close, and now I've got to make a decision based on some scoring nonsense that doesn't make any sense for this sport. That's a difference. So,
Scoring nonsense would be a good slogan for the UFC, just a new one. If that's actually one of the better ways I've ever heard that explained. And Mac, we've been holding you long enough. Obviously, we've got no less than 2,000 questions for you. We really appreciate you stopping by the podcast. This has been huge for us to talk to someone we've always viewed. You've always been one of those fighters that's cerebral and never bullied into being anything but who you were, which Raf and I always really respected, especially as we got the pleasure of watching you fight a ton. So, huge fans. We've loved getting to follow your career. We'll obviously stay in touch with you because you're fun to keep in light with about what's going on MMA.
Yeah.
And the photography side. You never know.
Awesome.
Always following your artistic side. So thank you so much for stopping by the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Mac Danzig.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It's been a good time. Sorry about rambling so long and being so long-winded, but that's what happens when you get old. You get hair coming out of your ears and you end up just rambling. But hopefully everybody that listens has something they may enjoy from it. I'm still embarrassed that I said I worked on the Avatar one and not the Legend of Korra. It's basically at this point, like knowing Brian as long as I have, and he's not one of the types of people that hold something over your head, but knowing him as long as I have, it's almost like someone asked me what my kids' names were, and I gave them like 2 random other names or something. It's that bad, like I'm not gonna live that one down. So yeah. Other than that, I had a great time.
Oh, perfect. Hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Raf and I will take it. Oh, Alex Perez, class act, real gallivanting. I don't think we needed his ego and all the excessive victory laps he took. I thought that was a little less classy
I don't think so.
I'm just bitter I lost mostly.
Well, he didn't like Tito Ortiz you
projecting.
and throw fucking middle fingers
Oh,
behind
God.
your back when you were walking away.
If, if there's
And Kev, I want to stop you here because if there's no better way, like if there were rounds in between us rolling and we got like a breaking point, you better believe that I would just push you out of the way because that's hysterical. No better way to show discontent to your opponent than just pushing them out of the way like a child.
Oh my God, I'm so glad that fight's over. I hope social media is like, we don't want a rematch. Everybody's good. Everybody's satisfied with the whole Bonner
you
Ortiz.
Remember when Stephan Bonner was so upset that the decision didn't go his way and collapsed?
Yes,
like he was waiting for the decision, and he's like, "No!" Like, dude, did you remember anything that happened in the past 3 rounds?
I have an Academy Award music sound button on my phone that I started playing, and no one at the party noticed. So
good.
No one
we
gave a
appreciate
shit.
it.
Yeah, it was awesome. Fun weekend of fights. Fun weekend in general. You ready to wrap this thing up with some shutouts?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. I'll start. Training partner shout out. This one's going to Matt. Trying to get him to finally start listening to the podcast. He was there Wednesday night, and he was like, oh, yeah, the podcast. I got to check this out. I was like, yes, you do. So I sent him some links. Big shout out to him. Great training partner. Always. He's one of those people that also looks up videos online and tries new stuff, which is always really fun. When you're rolling with someone, all of a sudden you're like, I saw effing Marcelo Garcia teaching this, you a-hole. I know where you got it. Fun to be back up at BJJ and MMA Academy out there in Chantilly, VA, doing some training, getting beat up, getting ready to come out to LA and train with you all. And I appreciate them just, turning me into tenderized meat. It's very sweet of them. Everyone that came out, yeah, I hosted a soiree this weekend. Raf nailed it. Earned major boyfriend points. We had a queso margarita beer pong party last night. Tons of fun.
That does sound like a great thing. You may not have been watching UFC 180, but your food list seems to suggest otherwise.
It was very Mexican themed. That was an accident. So that's gonna do it for me. I am going to say Last Encyclopedia Show coming up this Thursday. Also going to be at the Black Cat doing a sketch this Friday. So stoked. Lots going on here.
It's a very busy week in the life of Kevin T. Phillips.
Doing a musical theater variety show tomorrow night. We're doing the sketch. We want to rehearse it before Thursday's show. So tons of stuff going on.
I was about to say musical theater. Oof, sketch.
It's where musical theater meets spoken word. It's a real fun show.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna make fun of it, but now you were being sincere, so there's no reason to make fun of people like that.
That's fun.
Let's go ahead and thank first and foremost Mac Danzig.
Yeah.
Mac is one of the nicest people. Like I said, we've known each other for years. It's insane how some of our best friends are connected, and it's so funny. Like, I've heard about him. He's probably heard nothing about me, but I've heard lots about him over the time, and it was all great. And I got the chance to meet him when I was taking a seminar a few weeks ago, and just couldn't be a nicer guy.
Worth the price of admission. Really
most
fun
definitely.
to talk to.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is, and I said this on the podcast, but it is true. Like, I did realize how much of my own jiu-jitsu journey started by watching him. And I was always the guy who was rooting for the jiu-jitsu people on these shows. So it is really cool when you have parts of your game that you can remember back to who showed you it or who you modeled it after. And a very beginning part of my game definitely started with him. So my thanks to him. And I look forward to one day getting to train with him very soon. So thank you very much, Max. Speaking of people training again, guess who I did get to train with this week, Kev?
Who's that?
Our good friend Travis Connolly will be in town on Tuesday.
Money!
Tuesday, on the 18th, we're going to be doing a seminar out at the world famous Gracie Bar in Encino. It's going to be $15. It's 8 to 10 p.m. I highly encourage you guys to get on out here. Travis teaches one of the best seminars that you can really ever experience because he really takes his time to explain, and he gives everybody there something to walk away with. His Q&A session last year was, or earlier this year, was one of my favorite things. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. We're going to talk lots of shit about you, and I'm excited for that.
Pretty good at it. Yeah.
He's not bad. He's no me at talking shit about you, but who is?
People are.
That's what I'm saying. Conversely, I wanted to also thank Octavio, our good friend, who was able to do a nice video promo with me in honor of our good friend Travis Connolly coming out on Tuesday. You guys want to see that? We'll put that up on the website for your eyes to gander at. It is very funny, and Octavio is hilarious in it, so definitely watch it for that. Let's shout out Valley Martial Arts Center.
Back.
So much like Kevin is doing over at his place, I've told the guys to put me through the ringer here in anticipation for him coming out this way. And it's nice to know that I have a co-host who is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That I would do on his side of the world. So it was very funny because the two of us both are like, oh, yeah, I just told my training partners to just amp up the training. No reason.
Turn up the volume. Yeah.
No reason. It was just, it's just co-host is coming out soon, and he's been playing a lot of lapel guard and shit like that. So go ahead and do it. And it's so funny. Like today, who did I let do something? I was just like,
I have been playing a lot of lapel guard.
I know you are. That's fine. But there was one of the kids who's there. His name's Moses. He's a funny training partner to have. I just let him have mount, and he was getting so much better at it. And it was with the intention of, when I'm down in mount, I go, can I armbar this guy in 1 minute? I have to get out of mount, but can it happen? And he walks over to me and he just goes, Raf, I was feeling so much better about myself until you beat me up. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was actually a drill. I wanted to let you get mount and see if I could work out of it. And then he just starts laughing. He's like, you're a real fucking guy, man. And I was like, and he just starts laughing. So my thanks to him. Everybody's chipping in and preparing the best way they know how to get me there. So my thanks to him. He's a great training partner, and that was a lot of fun. Thanks to Alex Perez. Good stuff. Always funny. My thanks to Hollywood Way Bar out here. They said they would show the fights, and guess what? They did. And it's cheap cover. So, there's that. And let's go ahead and say, I think is that everybody on the shout-outs, Kevin? Am I missing anybody?
I think that's everybody. My girlfriend for turning 27. Congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. She's
nailed it.
The nicest person I know. And I was trying to tell Kevin this off air, but I used a lot of restraint when I said happy birthday to her on her Facebook, because it took everything in me not to say happy birthday and thanks for putting up with Kevin. I'm sorry. But
I know on a small scale what you go through. Hey, that's going to do it for us tonight here at Verbal Tap. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Mac. I am Kevin. Thanks for listening.
Good night. Good fight.
I was just watching Wayne's World. Where they're like, you don't say 2, 1. Why? Because you just don't. It's such a good scene.
It's a TV thing. Anybody who's worked
so
at TV
funny.
knows that.
Yeah, but it's just like, is this a why? You just don't. Okay. Wayne, Garth, we can see you counting. Oh, God.